and acknowledgement, and just talking about why we're here today, which is to talk about engaging the broader community in statewide campaigns. You know, it can be easy to get volunteers to come volunteer a day to clean up trash on the beach, but how do we engage people in broader campaigns that maybe take more time commitment or more knowledge of state government and legislation? And as we've seen, it's getting really important for our volunteers all across the state to get behind these campaigns. So we have two excellent guests to come and tell us a little bit about their strategies and insights and success stories.
Well, my screen share is being weird.
Yeah.
It won't let me go into present mode first.
We can just skip it. There's really not, I kind of just said everything that was on the slides.
Zoom is being really bad this week.
And we only have Marcella till 12:20, so probably good to start chatting with her. So hopefully, Marcella, I'm not sure how long your presentation is, but maybe there'll be a little bit of time for questions at the end if people have some.
Yeah, and I think I can stay a little bit after 12:20. I can push it. Okay,
cool.
Well, I am curious to hear if folks are familiar with Osberg students, or if this is like the first you've heard of it. Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Yeah, I actually, my very first lobby day, I lobbied for the Rise Above Plastics lobby day. So I got to meet some folks with Surf Rider too. So really cool. But yeah, I'm Marcella. Like I said, I'm a campus organizer with Osberg students. So I'm a staff person. I get to work with students at the U of O. I worked at Lane Community College last year. And my whole focus is on teaching students how to be effective activists while running really cool campaigns like plastic pollution, climate change, promoting civic engagement, really cool stuff. Right now, we're focused on our climate justice campaign, but I want to talk about our polystyrene, like our plastic pollution campaign, because that was actually the first thing that I ever got involved with. We've got some pretty cool success stories with that too. But back when I was a student, I think I was like 19 at the time. I'd never done anything with activism before. I didn't even know it was a thing you could do. I just kind of stumbled across doing some summer work, canvassing, going door to door. And we were working on the statewide polystyrene ban. And I was really excited about this and got involved. So this campaign, we worked on the statewide bill for about a year. We were focusing on our chapters at U of O, Lane Community College, and Southern Oregon University on engaging the students and the community there, as well as focusing on other places across the state. So I've actually got some pictures here. If I can, I can screen share. Okay, bear with me a moment. I've only got a couple slides, but all right, can folks see this? Okay, cool. So that year we focused on collecting petitions from students. We collected over 1,000 petitions across the state. And we focused on doing cleanups and doing bigger events to get a lot of media attention. So we had a really cool event called Jar Jam, where we passed out like mason jars to students at the U of O. And we had like local bands come and perform. And so we got covered by the local news, which was really cool. And we also focused too on lobbying our elected officials. We had U of O students write letters to our senators, and we mailed them. Just building support from flagship schools across the state. But we also knew that there was a lot of places on the coast that were going to be really important in this. So this picture up on the top left, this is us in Florence. We did like a quick local campaign, went out to Florence and Newport and Coos Bay, talked with a lot of local restaurant owners, and did a big beach cleanup. We got covered in the local news there too, to show our representatives on the coast that this is something we cared about too. I think folks know though, that bill did not pass across the state, but that doesn't mean that we were done by any means. We were looking at what California did with their plastic bag ban, where it didn't pass the first time across the state. And so they started focusing on different cities. And so we thought, okay, how can we model that? It's awesome that Portland, Florence, Ashland already have these polystyrene bans. What else can we do? So that's when we started focusing even more locally on a Eugene citywide ban. So the same tactics, really easy ways for folks to get involved. We did a bunch of river cleanups over at Alton Baker Park, if folks are familiar with Eugene. We worked with student government really closely and passed resolutions to show that other groups on campus were really involved. And then we testified at city council several times too, and got to know a lot of the city council members, like City Councilor Emily Semple and the mayor. And I think it was really valuable for us to be there to show that the younger generation was really, not only cared about these issues, but was willing to take steps to move towards a cleaner, plastic-free future. So here's some pictures here. You can see me behind that Osberg sign right there and our beautiful turtle. But ultimately, it worked. City Council in Eugene passed the ban unanimously, which was really cool to see. It was really awesome seeing a ton of community members come together behind this one issue and show that this was something Eugene really cared about. So you can add Eugene now to the list of cities across the state. I believe now it's a third of Oregonians that are living under a polystyrene plastic foam ban, which is awesome. So now we're re-strategizing and looking now, okay, what can we do to continue to build this momentum? So we're starting to talk with local county commissioners in Lane County about what can we do on a county-wide level. So working on that now, gonna see how that goes. But yeah, that's what I got. I don't know if folks have any questions.
I do. So canvassing isn't something that Surfrider often does, at least here in Oregon, but I know OSPRG students and Environment Oregon do it a lot more. So can you talk a little bit more about your experience canvassing and sort of the effectiveness of canvassing?
Yeah.
And just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about when we're talking about canvassing. I like to check in on that terminology.
Has anyone ever canvassed before, like door knocked? Okay, a couple hands. So canvassing, door knocking, this is just going out into neighborhoods, knocking on people's doors and educating them on the campaign that you're working on and seeing how they're available to help if they're interested, whether that's signing a petition, volunteering, donating. And so that's what I did my very first summer. Every day we'd go out, knock on a bunch of different doors and talk with community members to help build support. It's challenging, not gonna lie, but it's incredibly rewarding. My first summer that I did it, you get to just talk with so many amazing people that are so passionate about this issue, and they're so excited that you're at their door too. Like a lot of folks know that this is an issue that they care about. Like they know about plastic pollution, but they don't know what they can do about it. And sometimes it is as simple as signing a petition or chipping in $10 if they're able to. And something I thought was really cool is I canvassed for this specific issue, the polystyrene statewide ban, 2 summers in a row. So the first summer, a lot of it was me educating folks on what polystyrene was, talking with folks about different news articles that they saw, educating them on why plastic foam is so bad for the environment. What was really cool was the next summer when I was knocking on people's doors, you could see the shift of so many people knew what polystyrene was, and they had seen it on the news. They knew that there were bans being passed. They were already for it. And folks are like, okay, what's the next step? And they're like, why didn't this statewide ban pass? So it's cool seeing this mass education and getting the experience of talking with folks one-on-one.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, do folks have any other questions?
So I'm very inspired, Marcella. You're touching my heart, just sharing your stories. And so what would be, I guess I would say for somebody who's never canvassed before, and I have, but you're obviously a lot more experienced. So what would be the most important things to say to a brand new canvasser?
To a brand new canvasser, I feel like there's a lot of things. I think one thing is like wear your heart on your sleeve and like just get to know the people at the door. Like you will just find a lot of people that care, and people get really excited when they know that you care as well. And, you know, sometimes you're going to get no's. Sometimes people don't have time to talk. Sometimes people aren't interested, but you can't get discouraged by that, because it's less about changing people's minds and convincing them that this is something they should care about, and more about finding the people that are already passionate and educating them on ways that they can get involved.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
I have a question. You talked a little bit about like some ideas for engaging students, but what are some of your most effective ways to get like a broad array of students involved? Are there certain techniques that you can always rely on, or?
Yeah. So do you mean like involved in like volunteering, or like involved at like any level?
I guess involved at any level. And yeah, if you could clarify, you know, how to get people just to join something for a day versus actually like become a more regular volunteer.
Yeah. So in terms of like letting folks know about how they can get involved, at the start of each term, we just spend a few weeks like telling everyone on campus about who we are, what we're working on, and how to get involved. So we like pass out flyers, do class announcements, and just start recruiting folks. But I think something that really draws in a lot of people is doing like these bigger, like fun events. This wasn't for the plastics campaign, but my first term, we were working on our Save the Bees campaign, and we were working on banning bee-killing pesticides. And we did this big concert at the end of the year. Like we called it the Bees Bash. We had local bands. We passed out honey sticks. And it was really about raising awareness about the issue and educating people. And a lot of folks attended that, came to it, and they were just so excited, like from the energy, from like this cool thing that we were doing, that they were like, okay, what can I do next? Like, can I get involved with this? That's really cool. So I think doing like these bigger things draws in a lot of people, but also just asking everyone all the time. Like anytime someone signs a petition, we're like, hey, like, do you want to volunteer? Do you want to help out? And a lot of folks say no, but you'd be surprised at when and where people say yes and get excited.
And for platform for communicating, what do you find works? Like, do you do email? Do you do phone calls, text messages, social media, all of the above?
Ideally, all of the above, but that's sometimes challenging to get out across all of those. Phone calls is really the thing we found to be most effective. It's attention. A lot of young people do not like calling other young people on the phone, so that can be really intimidating for folks. But having those one-on-one conversations over the phone like allows for the space for you to like get to know the person, and a lot of people do get really excited.
Any other questions out there? Have you had any like big learning curves where you tried a tactic or strategy that just totally didn't work?
Constantly. There is always something that I'm learning every single day of doing this work. I think one thing that I just learned, like this might not be very specific, but some things that I'm always really excited about or really want to do aren't necessarily what the students want to do. So just making sure that, you know, like the people that are actually running the events are doing what they want to do. Because they'll just put, you know, a lot more energy, effort, passion. You can just tell when people are excited about things. But it's moving to remote. It's definitely a huge learning curve too. We were very used to like waving people in person, doing class announcements in person. Now suddenly they're over Zoom. So that was a lot of trial and error over the past year.
So how do you have a way that you solicit ideas from your students to figure out what they are excited to work on?
Yeah, so all of our campaigns are student run. So there's like campaign coordinators for each of the campaigns, and I'm here more as an advisor for folks, like direct them using my experience. So we do weekly meetings. So we have like a big chapter-wide meeting where all of the volunteers, all the leaders come together. And that's run by our chapter chair, who's a student, and she like gets feedback from folks, and they decide like what they want the next few weeks to look like. And then we also have smaller campaign meetings too. So like our climate justice campaign, they meet every week. Our hunger and homelessness campaign, they meet. And that's where they discuss more specifically, like what sort of events do they want to do? How do they want to talk to elected officials? That sort of thing.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome. And it is, there's like that energy and enthusiasm even talking about student work, because you can just picture all those students out dressed up and having fun. And yeah, really that energy goes such a long way, and I think does make such an impact on our legislators and decision makers too.
For sure. Yeah. When we go to the State House, we try to have someone dressed in our turtle costume too, hoping that that's pretty memorable. And it usually is.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to a city council meeting here in Eugene, I totally remember seeing all the Osberg students. I was like, oh, they're having fun and they are working hard. Like, this is awesome.
That's awesome. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, thank you, Marcella. I know you have to go, so thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It was really great talking with everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Marcella. I got lots of good nuggets. It was just a few minutes, but I'm going to use what you shared. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, Jean. Good luck, everyone.
Bye. Okay, and next we have Ashley, who is a field organizer for Rogue Climate.
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. I'm going to share some information about the statewide No LNG Exports campaign, like how that was started, some of the highlights of that coalition, and then what's happening now, because we're in a time of transformation, and it's really neat about what's happening with Jordan Cove and other related campaigns. So first of all, Jordan Cove LNG, no LNG exports. Does anybody have no idea what I'm talking about when I mention that? If you need like a quick review, I can give like a 1-second synopsis, but I have a feeling that most folks on the call know what I'm talking about. So, okay, cool. So we know the basics, that it's a 230-mile proposed fracked gas pipeline to go through Douglas, Coos, Jackson, and Klamath counties. And this project's been proposed since 2004, which is such a wild time for this to be proposed here throughout the state of Oregon with, for our communities in Southern Oregon. And while it was proposed originally as an import terminal, a lot of the import work was kind of more locally based out here in Coos County. And then, as the project grew, as it became an export terminal, there were a lot of folks that were involved with organizing, but there wasn't really a centered space for people to really come together, because this project impacts not just people that care about the environment, but there's a lot of folks that come from tribal backgrounds. We work with a lot of landowners, people that would be impacted by eminent domain. We work a lot with forestry folks that want to protect all the public lands that the proposed routes would be going through. So how do we bring all these different interests together to make sure that that, you know, whatever's going on with the project, that one, we can work together, collaborate, and work on the goals of stopping this project. So many moons ago, I know Road Climate helped out with becoming a center for this coalition space. We have the No LNG Exports Coalition that basically every other week we work with folks from all over the state that jump on these organizing calls, and we talk about, of course, like what's going on with the project, but we talk about goals and how we want to achieve them. And some of them have been, you know, organizing for different hearings and doing working together on different aspects. That we'll have some groups that are like, okay, well, we'll do the social media kits for everybody to share. There'll be some folks that are like, okay, we'll organize security, and we'll organize food, because come on, when we get to be in person, food is a really big part of these events. And what's neat is that it's really different folks coming together. And a lot of times, like, we also have individuals that want to be a part of that space. So I know everybody on the call right now is like, has some affiliation with Surfrider, but if you weren't affiliated with Surfrider, you could still get involved. And we definitely welcome our friends from Surfrider from joining the space. And I think one of the things that really strikes to mind about this campaign is that we kind of like meeting of the minds, and we think about you know, who are the people that really influence this? Who are the people that are the real decision makers? And then we really focus on making a strategy, and then getting individual assistance with that. I know the thing that really comes to mind that folks may have experience was November 2019. I know Jean was in my van for, we did a round trip to Salem, where, you know, between all these different communities, not just the ones impacted but directly through the proposed pipeline, but just getting our friends from Salem and Corvallis and any and everywhere. That day in November 2019, we had about 1,000 people show up to Salem. I don't know if anybody else was there that day. Bree, you were awesome. And when it came to putting together that event, we had so many different people that were helping out with making art, making posters. We really like to see what people's interests are. So it's like, okay, well, if you're great on calling people, you can help us with calling. There's also, we started to do in the last few years, text banking, which you can actually like use a program to send mass text to people, which is really cool. But we also really work on like e-blasts, which are, you know, emails to catch people's attentions, and really focus on social media too, to get folks involved. But that day, I just think about that day in particular because it took in less than a month. You know, it was a really big collaboration that we had, basically many subcommittees and folks coming together to with the goal of getting Governor Brown's attention, which if folks are familiar with that day, first we had a rally, and then we had a beautiful singing moment in the rotunda. And then while folks were singing, another special group of folks got to go into the governor's office and sit in for many, many hours, and got to really, 21 folks did get arrested. So that's another part of organizing. also organize jail support and organize folks to get the support that they need. Our intention is not to get people arrested, but it's one of those things that when it comes to organizing moments, it is a possibility. So basically with that day, Governor Kate Brown did end up issuing a letter saying that she would do everything to protect Oregon's authority to protect water quality. And since then, that letter's been quite effective. And when push came to shove last year, sadly, the federal government did give approval on the project for what's called the Certificate of Need, AKA eminent domain. The state of Oregon actually filed their own lawsuit against FERC. So we know that through strategizing and thinking about who are the decision makers, we can catch their attention and get their support. And basically in the last year, between COVID and just sadly, everything's kind of in the courts right now, our organizing space has changed. So in the time of COVID, we have been doing a lot of asking folks to do letters to the editor, running different webinars, doing what kind of education can we do right now. With some of the folks that I work here in Coos County, we've been talking about how can we protect our estuary further? How can we create the change that we want to see while having to be virtual in our homes? So, but the other thing that has shifted during that time is we're not the only fight that's going on right now in terms of stopping fossil fuel development. And between our state of Oregon and our friends up north in Washington, we've actually have joined forces to have what's called Power Past Frack Gas. And it's a coalition that I personally have not been keeping up what's going on in Washington. And we're essentially have formed one of the first regional coalitions to stopping fossil fuels. A lot of these coalitions are more localized. So, so we're excited to be working together with folks, all the way from Ashland, all the way to the top north of Washington. So we're looking forward to seeing how we can support one another. And so depending on where you live, there's different campaigns that are going on. Our friends in Eugene are really focusing on stopping the Northwest natural gas contract negotiations that are going on right now. And they're working on a really big anti-fossil fuel campaign that I know folks can totally jump in right now. And yeah, this is just been a neat time to see us kind of come together and support each other more on a regional basis, because sadly what's happened here in Southern Oregon in terms of being proposed projects, it's happening throughout our state and north of us. So why not come together and help each other out and see how we can stop these projects for good. So I said a lot of stuff. Are there any questions about anything?
I just wanted to add, I guess, first of all, the singing in the Capitol at that rally was I get chills thinking about it, and I have a recording. Maybe we can include in our blog post, Anna. I'll find that recording to send to you. It was anyway, so yeah, rallies are super, super fun, and getting to Salem to actually speak with representatives and senators. But, we had to pivot this for the past year, and I haven't been tracking it. I need to look it up, but there was a bill proposed this session to continue allowing remote testimony and remote participation with the legislative session. And so that's something that I am really hoping passes. And Ashley, I don't know if you've been following that or know where it is right now, but
Don't need the updates on it.
yeah, I'll look it up, but that would make it a lot easier because we, you know, for the rallies, different rallies that have been mentioned, we have volunteers that take off work or who don't have traditional jobs or retired are able to attend, but it's really, really difficult for people to go to Salem to those amazing events because it's during the day, because that's when the Capitol building's open and that's when our legislators are there. So hopefully these remote methods continue, and maybe we can get even more creative about like involving people in those huge rallies in Salem. I know there's like Facebook Live that goes on during a lot of them, but it's just pretty amazing. And I really hope this like a hybrid method continues, since it makes everything so much more accessible.
Yeah, thank you, Bree, for mentioning that, because that's definitely something in the last year. I mean, like when we do organize, we do think about accessibility. So if we know that there's communities that are, especially like folks from Klamath area that are going to be extremely directly impacted by this project, we want to make sure that they get to Salem. And before COVID, we would you know, pay for their travel if they needed a hotel to stay, if they needed a meal voucher. We you know, we want to make sure that folks who deserve the opportunity to have a voice get that opportunity to do so. Yeah, Jean.
So Ashley, great to see you here. And I remember that day. That was amazing. And I want to really acknowledge you, because a thing that made it a big difference for me, I mean, I was at this point where I just felt like I had to stand up and do something. That had just been, you know, so many years of trying to make change, that to actually go and put myself in a position where I could get taken to jail, which I absolutely did not want to do. But to put my values on the line that way for civil disobedience, and maybe that was my first, you know, like out front civil, you know, right there in front of everybody, civil disobedience. And one thing that made a huge difference for me was the fact that, do you remember when like Maria came, there was the thing about educating people about their rights. And there was so much about education and what to say, you know, about what our rights are and how to appropriately communicate with officers and understanding their context. And, you know, they're doing the job the best of their ability and what they're told. And then the fact that there was the jail support, and, you know, I had that Sharpie on my arm, really helped me feel better. The fact that I went in there and I felt like I was fully prepared for everything. And what that did was that made my faith in road climate go way up. The integrity of thinking about everything that could happen. And that's something I want to see in Surfrider. I want to see that Surfrider, and I'm not, you know, saying it's about necessarily that context, but I want people to go just like Surfrider, like we can absolutely count on Surfrider, and Surfrider is going to do the right thing. But that level, and also the level of, you know, what you've talked about, like the state, across state lines, coalitions, and pooling resources and bringing people together. I'm just amazed. So I'll be quiet now.
Oh, I was going to say thank you, Jean. And I also was going to make a comment. Jean was also very instrumental on making sure that I was able to pack up my car right in front of the Capitol when there was a trooper trying to get me to move my car. So Jean was great to talk to police. But we definitely do want to make things accessible as possible for folks. So, and make sure people feel comfortable. And basically wherever your talents and interests are, you know, if you feel comfortable doing that, that's great. If you want to be outside making signs or helping people sign in, that's great. And I think that's really what we try to focus on. And I just dropped in the chat. Well, I noticed Bree added information about the is it about the remote bill? Okay.
Yes,
About the
it
remote
looks
bill.
like it's still alive.
Cool. And then I just dropped in a link about the Power Pass Fracked Gas campaign. So it has more information about kind of how that's going. I don't think it's been uploaded with the information about the Eugene campaign specifically. But if you have more info, if you have questions, I'll just add my email in here. So feel free to follow up.
Great. Thank you. And I just want to make sure that Bree has a chance to share Olivia's story as well, and then we'll see where we're at with time for just more questions or discussion.
Sure. So I know a lot of you, since you've been at all of our sessions, have heard about the 5th grade student club in Newport, but Olivia Schrader, their teacher, wasn't able to join us today, but she did write something up for me to share with you that gets a little deeper and it shows a little more behind the scenes, what it's like engaging younger students in policy work. And something that's really interesting. So we, right now, Surfrider's having our all staff meetings. So I've been on Zoom every day this week for a long time. And right before I hopped on to this training, we were having a PR training, and they were talking about, you know, media rights at a 5th grade level. That's like the gold star, is writing at a 5th grade level. And in Oregon, which is something that's really unique about our Surfrider clubs, is that almost all of them are 5th graders. And so I was thinking about how interesting that is, because they're kind of naturally communicating at that level, and it's so much easier for them. They don't have to think about it like we have to think about it and be like, oh, is this like too complicated? But anyway, that's my anecdote from my many hours of meetings today. So I'm just going to read verbatim what Olivia sent. Children have a moral sincerity that is unprecedented. They understand complex issues and want their voices to be heard. They do not have the power to vote, but they can make an impact in various other ways. It is important to engage them, as they have an ability to reach through to adults with their heartfelt and profound ideas. First of all, before any mention of plastic pollution or climate impacts, our ocean unit began generally. We learned about the layers, depths, and habitats of the sea. Using various books and multimedia tools, students researched and represented their learning with writing and artwork on the ocean habitat. We created a mural of the ocean and its inhabitants. Guest speakers came to our classroom, including a NOAA boat captain, ODFW fish biologist, Marine Resources Program Director, and Oregon Field Manager for Surfrider Foundation. From there, we shifted towards ocean stewardship. We completed the YES unit, which is Youth Environmental Stewardship. That included activities and discussions with Surfrider volunteers, including a beach captain, data collection on marine debris, and making nurdle necklaces. Then, using a curriculum for research-based argument writing, students studied both sides of the plastic bag issue. They wrote essays arguing their chosen side. 8 students presented their essays at Newport City Council meetings, and all students visited other Sam Case classrooms to share their research. This was meaningful work, but securely grounded in district-wide standards around speaking, listening, reading, writing, and ocean literacy. We began Zero Waste Fridays in our classroom, attended outdoor school at Camp Gray, which is an OMSI camp, and planned and carried out a zero waste field trip, which included tide pooling at Yaquina Head, another beach cleanup at South Beach State Park, creating marine debris art, and staying overnight in the South Beach yurts. And I'll also add about that field trip, a 5th grade class from Portland came down and joined in that field trip as well. There's another Surfrider club, and Olivia's aunt is their teacher. We also attended the Rise Above Plastics Day at the Oregon State Capitol, meeting and discussing plastic pollution with David Gomberg, Arnie Roblin, and Governor Kate Brown. Students were very active in their community, writing and discussing plastic pollution with the Newport News Times, Newport City Council, and Newport Mayor, as well as attending and presenting at the Earth Day celebration at the Newport Public Library. By starting a Surfrider student club at Sam Case Elementary, students felt like they were part of something. And I see this now with groups of kids starting beach cleanup groups. They're posting on Instagram and sharing their milestones that the community can see. As they learned and taught others about plastic pollution, I watched students take enormous pride in the beaches, oceans, and waterways where they live. Our work took us outside of the classroom and into the real world. Their learning was not isolated, but spiraled back time and again as they were invited to create artwork on the topic, speak at public hearings and events, write opinion pieces to the newspaper, etc. So Olivia closes with some takeaways for engaging kids. Give it time. Approach a topic first generally. Make it about animals. Show them examples of other kids who have made a difference. Give them an opportunity to share their researched voice. Their hard work in research, writing, speaking, science, and civic knowledge is rewarded when they're able to share it with the world. Provide a sense of togetherness. Help them feel that they're a part of something. The clubs, the first year was called 30 Otters. And then, I think the first year was Oceanic Society of Turtle Lovers. The second year was 30 Otters, and they had a website. And so feeling like they were a cohesive group. Choose an issue that has momentum, locally, nationally, or globally. And finally, take them on a journey. It's not an isolated event. It's something that grows and develops over time. And that's what Olivia shared.
Thank you for reading that. That was really wonderful. Yeah, it does bring a tear to the eye.
Yeah, those kids are so passionate. And I remember many of you were on the training last night and know that there was a group of people that tried to repeal the Newport bag ban. And shortly after we found that out, the students were hosting a public event at a local restaurant where they were sharing their experience working on the ordinance and researching plastic. And so I was talking to them, and Olivia had told them that some people were trying to repeal it, and they were just like, yeah, that's not going to happen. They were so optimistic about it, and they were just like, oh, yeah, well, we did a lot of work and the community supports this, and they're not going to overturn the bag ban. And they didn't. But it was awesome because the adults were kind of like annoyed with it, and the students were like, that's not going to happen.
Reaching out to kids lasts a long time too, because I know a lot of those kids, and they're still really motivated. That particular class is in the 7th grade now.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're all lifelong environmentalists.
Mm-hmm.
Get them young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a good friend who lives out in Newport who knows a couple of you, Amelia Vaughn, and her little girls, I mean, they're 3 and 6, and just like from infanthood, they're out there cleaning up the beaches, educating others, learning about it. And it's like, wow, what a way to raise these little activists. Of course, they're growing up on a beach that's beautiful, but has tons of plastic on it. So they have to do something from a young age.
Yeah. And we have a 5th grade club in Coos Bay also, and they've gotten involved with speaking at virtual events now.
Mhm. Ashley, have you, through Rogue Climate, done work with youth, like under 18 youth?
Yes, well, I just drop in the chat. Right now, I'm actually doing outreach for a South Coast youth organizing internship that the age is a little bit older because we want to include non-traditional students as well, but 14 to 35. Road climate in general, like, recognizes that like we can only grow if we grow the next generation of climate leaders. So between our organization really focuses on different like internship, volunteer opportunities out here in Coos County. I've been able to work with some great families that really want to have their kids involved, and one of them is my favorite that Bree and Jean may have seen at the Salem event. Her name's Sephora. She plays the violin, but she played the violin during the Salem rally, which was so cute. So, and it brought a lot of tears to people's faces. So, yeah, we like to have fun with, we like to create fun opportunities for kids to become involved and engaged, because they're the ones that's going to be dealing with all this later.
And a lot of those kids that were involved with the bag band in Newport from Olivia's club influenced their parents.
Yep, that's the key. And those students also were able to reach the Latinx community in Newport, which is not a typical audience for us, but our counselor Boteo said if we don't reach them, we're not getting her vote. And so those students made it happen.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to mention too, Road Climates has a whole, we have a bilingual organizer that just focuses on that. And in the past, that role has in the Rogue Valley, where there is like a lot of migrant families because of the agriculture communities down there. They've done some really cool events that they did like a bilingual internship. And then at the end, they did like they called it a fiesta and brought their families together and got to have like an environmental celebration, and while also also honoring like their cultural traditions, which we saw was a great way to make families have that conversation with a little bit more ease.
That's
and also
awesome.
the food was really great too. So it was a fun event for me to go to.
Key to community organizing, food.
It makes a difference.
I just want to touch back, Bree. I'm so inspired by what you shared, Olivia's story. Reading that, I was almost starting to cry a couple times during that, and that's the thing. And Ashley was saying it, like, who are the decision makers, and how can we influence them? Strategic thinking. The thing is, we don't have unlimited resources, whether we're talking about dollars or volunteer hours, volunteer person hours. We need to, or, resources on our earth. We have to think about what we have and use them wisely and use them strategically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably more moved by what Olivia wrote about those kids than anything I've heard out of any politician's mouth ever. I mean, not to say this, some aren't inspiring. I'm just saying that, like,
Well, and the
kids-
politicians get moved by the kids.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah, right.
And
They
they're
might-
nice to them.
yeah, they won't listen to me, but they'll listen to the kids.
And sometimes they're not nice to us, but they're nice to the kids.
Yeah, Karen Walker at a Department of State Lands. A few years ago, there was hearings for the what's called a removal fill permit. And out here at Coos County, the casino was filled with people. So many people were trying to give testimonies. She didn't allow people to clap, like no cheering, no nothing. But a couple of children, children of Enna Helms, who's a Confederated Tribes of the Lower Umpqua, Siuslaw, and Coos Rivers, or sorry, I forgot the Klutzy.
Klutzy.
Yes, the hard acronym. But they spoke, and Karen like broke down and was like, all right, everybody, we need to give these kids applause. And it was like one of those moments that we were like, yeah, I give like having children speak about like why they love the estuary. Like, yeah, you saw a tear drop from her eye.
Mhm. That's funny. We had a city councilor at the time that raised the rules and was like, there is no clapping. And people were like doing little mini claps anyway. And he was getting frustrated. Yeah, Mike's face that. Yep.
So maybe it's about you can control the adults, but you can't control the kids.
The adults were like, whatever, we're clapping.
Oh, yeah, but I'm like in the bigger picture,
Yeah.
trying to control, right? If it would have been a room full of kids at city council, would the council member have responded the same way to a room full of kids in the audience versus a room full of adults?
He actually might have. He's not a city councilor anymore.
Oh, well.
Now he's the city attorney.
Oh, no.
Interest.
All right, well, we are almost at the hour. So unless there's any last burning questions, I just want to thank you again, Ashley, for joining. And we'll thank Olivia for sending that really moving letter. And thank you all for joining. This was definitely inspirational. I mean, learned some key lessons here.
Yeah, thank you all. I hope you get to enjoy the sun. I'm going to get on my next meeting outside.
Good. And thank Marcella too. She was awesome.
Yeah, totally. Great.
Thank
Take
you.
care,
And
everyone.
thank you, Bree and Anna, for putting this together. These are wonderful.
Yeah, I love them.
Thank
It's
you.
really, every time there's so much inspiration. So what it's all about.
And it's really special when we get to see Diane's Shark headphones. Thank you. All right, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.